So forget gold. Too much gold, but there's too little silver. Literally too little silver. There's so many secret gold hiding spots in the world. There's way too little silver. Here's a discovery I made on the road to Ruta when I came home from work and I was exhausted. I'm lying on the couch. I got the History Channel on, and they're talking about the making of the first atomic bomb in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. This guy, General Leslie Groves, the guy who was in charge of it for the military, came out years later, wrote a book. He said, we had to use 3 billion ounces of silver from the U.S. Mint, or from the reserves they had. Remember, silver was money back when they were making the bomb in the early 40s. And they couldn't tell anybody. He even says it in his book. We couldn't tell anybody because it was money. There it is. It got made into these things called calutrons, and that's how they refined the uranium for the first nuclear bomb. Massive amounts of silver. And the idea was, use the silver because they're the best conductor of electricity, make your bomb substances, and then we'll put it back when the war is over, and that was the official story, is they put it back in 1952. Complete bullshit. If you just invented the most important military discovery that changed the world, would you melt down the facility and say, oh, we don't need it? No. And they didn't. That's what the full thing looked like. 3 billion ounces of silver were used. So what do? If you don't have the use of silver, you got problems with silver, what do? You create a derivative exchange for silver. All you crypto people are learning, many people for the first time, that derivatives cause distortions in a freely traded market, in the exchanges. Our friend Chris Giancarlo, which I'll get to in a second, said he had to pop the Bitcoin bubble, is what he called it. The U.S. government popped the Bitcoin bubble. And what they use? The same type of derivatives that they used to rig the silver markets. In 2018, they mine about 850 million ounces of silver every year. In 2018, 129 billion, with a B, billion ounces of silver were traded on the COMEX. Back and forth, HSBC, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, you name it, back and forth with each other to rig the price of silver. And that's why you're sitting here with $18 silver right now. Is it 18? Something like that? Where it should be over $1,000 by now, easily. LBMA, another criminal exchange in London. Last year they did 171 billion ounces of silver. Remember, they only mine 850 million ounces a year. In the entirety of humanity, there's only been 60 billion ounces ever mined. And yet, every year, they're trading literally hundreds of billions of derivative contracts to rig the price of silver. Even SLV. Who here has shares in SLV? Anybody? A couple people. It's hard to admit. They 1.4 billion ounces of SLV shares traded hands last year. They didn't have the silver. What's the total right now in the warehouse supposedly held by JP Morgan? I think it's 300 million. And yet even SLV is rehypothecated. And other silver derivatives, let's just add another 100 billion. Here's the total silver derivatives. 400 billion ounces versus 850 million mined. And you wonder why the price of silver never goes anywhere. The good thing is JP Morgan's being brought up on RICO charges for rigging the price of silver, which is amazing. Although they don't call it, yes, that's a big one. They don't call it JP Morgan yet. Have you noticed that? The DOJ came out, and there's 5 guys right now who have been busted, and they all work for something called Bank A. There's Bank A and there's Bank B. Bank A is obviously JP Morgan, because you look at the name of the traders and then you just run, go on their LinkedIn and it works for JP Morgan. JP Morgan is the biggest bank in the world. Is the DOJ going to bust JP Morgan, the largest bank in the world, on RICO charges? I hope so. Because RICO charges, the maximum penalty is 3 times what you sold. Because JP Morgan took all this physical silver, according to Ted Butler. They have over 1 billion ounces of silver. While they were rigging the price low with the derivatives, they took the real stuff. They hodled their silver like you wouldn't believe. So they might be on the hook to silver investors for 3 times that, which would be 3 billion ounces of silver, and it's just not available. It's not anywhere. You can't find it anywhere in the world, which would destroy the bank. Too big to fail bank. It would destroy everything. Here's something scary. I've been doing this since 2000 with silver, and I saw this coming with cryptos. I'm like, look at the volumes. If you're on the RoadtoRoota, I'm always screaming, look at the volume, look at the volume. These aren't real cryptos, they're trading. Average crypto exchange holds an estimated less than 10% of customer assets. That's nothing. Some are better, like Coinbase probably owns 70%. But they don't own yours, and it's so easy to find that out. All you have to say is, show me the address where you hold all these coins. They don't show you. They're not going to show you because they don't have them. And look at the volume. Average 24-hour exchange volume for Litecoin today is $3 billion worth of Litecoin, and the market cap is $4 billion. Who here was selling Litecoin this month, this week, in the last 24 hours? Anybody? Where are they getting the Litecoin? Who sold $3 billion worth of Litecoin in the last 24 hours, which is almost all the Litecoin ever mined? Nobody. It's all fake. That's how they set the price. The current supply of Litecoin is 63.5 million Litecoin. In 2018, they traded 12 billion Litecoin. 189 times the supply of Litecoin was traded. That's why we need to get rid of all the exchanges. Just get rid of them. They got to go. They're criminal organizations. They will go when the banks collapse. And then we can restart with decentralized exchanges, peer-to-peer transactions. Reggie Middleton had a way to do it, but there's other ways as well. Anybody own Veritasium here? I love that. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Hang on to that one. It'll be real interesting because if the SEC comes back and says it was a fraud, you're a fraud, we're going to take all the Veritasium. It's very centralized, by the way, so it's not a cryptocurrency. Reggie owns 90% of it, plus 97% of it. If the SEC comes back and says, we're shutting you down, it will go to zero. And it will prove the criminality of the SEC. If they come back and say, oh my God, we're sorry, Reggie. Or just slaps a little fine on them like they did with EOS guys, the block one ridiculous fraud. If they slap that kind of fine on it at the same percentage, Reggie would have to pay, I think it was like $50,000 to make the SEC go away. We'll see. Hang on to your Veritasium, though. Where are the hodlers in Litecoin? That's where I want to know. They're all in this room. You saw everybody raise their hand, right? They're all at this conference today, tomorrow, the next day. Charlie needs to say, all right, everybody out there who sold their Litecoin in the last 24 hours, because somebody just sold 3 billion ounces, or $3 billion worth of Litecoin in the last 24 hours. How is that possible? It's not. It's a fraud. It's a lie. It's a cheat. So, I want to move on to broken markets into free markets. I wrote a song about this. It is so important that we have free markets in this free society. How do we get free markets? Do we need more regulation? No, we don't. We don't need more regulation, but just in case we did, I wrote an article and gave 17 requirements for a freely traded market in silver years and years ago. Bart Chilton actually read it and contacted me about it, asked me questions about it. They talked about it at the CFTC board. You know what they said? It'd be too hard to do. It'd be too hard to make sure that when people sold something, they actually owned it before they sold it. What's so hard about that? It's hard to... The problem is they can't keep the con going. If they follow rules that made sense, you can't keep the con going. So no, the regulators, there shouldn't be more regulation. There should be no regulation. None. And here he is. If you've been watching the last couple days, if you saw Bitcoin Ben's rant, Benny, who held cryptocurrencies at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018? Your government, if you're in the US or the UK people, and there's people from all over the place, your government did it. And Chris Giancarlo, the head of the CFTC, admitted. He got with Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, Gary Cohen, the NEC head. He was the head of the CFTC, and Donald Trump, to rig the markets, to destroy the price of Bitcoin. If you want to be angry at someone, don't be angry at Cliff High. Be angry at Chris Giancarlo and Trump and Mnuchin and Gary Cohen, because they did it. Yes, it shouldn't have gone up to 20 because it was being rigged higher by Brock Pierce and those guys. It should have been slow and steady wins the race. So was it they going after the bad guys to crash the price down and blah, blah, blah? I don't know. But if they're going to do something like this and continue to do it, they got to tell the people, because they ruined lives, they ruined fortunes. They took all the air out of the crypto movement, which was part of the plan, basically. Slow it down, slow it down. It can't go so fast. We need a slow transition to kick the can down the road. And they've been kicking that freaking can since 1930. What is a free market? A free market is an economic system based on supply and demand with little or no government involvement. Is a summary description of all the voluntary exchanges that take place in a given economic environment. Free markets are characterized by spontaneous and decentralized orders of arrangement through which individuals make economic decisions. Free markets reward good decisions and punish bad decisions. In a free market, there's no such thing as a banker bailout. There's no such thing. If you place a bet and you lose, you lose. Do we have free markets today? Take a guess. No, we don't. This is the problem right here. These are the free market disruptors. The Federal Reserve determines the cost of money that affects all assets and transactions. How can you have free anything when they're rigging the basic underlying thing that you're using to value assets? Money. They're rigging money. Federal bailouts and nationalization assures that losses are socialized and the gains are privatized. You don't see, JP Morgan just came out with one of their best earning days ever. You don't see the government saying, oh, you're making a little too much. You need to give that back to society. No, they don't say that, but if JP Morgan goes bankrupt, they're going to get a bailout. Market rigging mechanisms like high-frequency trading, derivatives distort the true price discovery. That's what we're seeing with these volumes. Derivatives are not supposed to set the price of a commodity. It's called a price taker. It's supposed to, from the true give and take, free-willing buyer and seller, where they have the asset and are paying for it, that's where the price is determined. If the derivative market gets so big that it distorts that price, it should be shut down according to commodity law. That's commodity law. That's what it says, but that's not what they do. Regulators are not the solution. They are the problem. Regulators destroy free market balance This is important. The main goal of all regulators is to help maintain market stability, aka protect the free market corrections, creating market distortions. Regulatory bodies foster a false sense of confidence in criminal markets and exchanges. Most of us wouldn't be here if there were no regulators. Most of it wouldn't, because we wouldn't be, all this would be settled in the market. There wouldn't be undervalued assets. All assets would be valued according to what their fair market value is, a willing buyer and a willing seller. Regulatory revolving doors foster ripe environments. Everybody, when they get out of the CFTC or the SEC, goes to work for the banks and make the big money because they got connections back with the SEC and the CFTC. Market regulators provide a cover for large market participants, for market rigging and price control. When Alan Greenspan wrote the first computer programs in the 1960s to rig markets, as soon as we went off the gold standard, those markets, the rigging programs kicked in, and they created the CFTC at the same year that they went off the gold standard and started, because they need the regulators to run cover for the manipulation in the background. The cost savings gained by closing all financial regulatory agencies would solve world hunger. Did you know that? How many are there? Are there 7, one for every continent? No. Are there 195? One for every country? No. How many regulators are there? 740. 4 for every country? No. 3,015 different financial regulators in every country. That's not even right either. There's over 40,000 regulators, 200 regulators, financial regulators per country on average, with the U.S. having the most. It's not just the SEC, the CFTC. It's insurance regulators. It's, you name, talk to Will Lair, who is here today, about the regulatory hoops he has to go through so he can sell cryptos in your 401k. He's right over there. It is insane. You get rid of all the regulators, you can feed the world. So I had this big slide on, okay, let's fix the problem. And then Chris Giancarlo came and I just basically said, you can't. You can't fix this problem. You gotta get rid of the exchanges. So I deleted these slides. Look at all that stuff I was gonna talk about. And I'll put this up at the RoadtoRoota so you guys can see it. Talks about the difference between a controlled market and a free market. For example, the gold. And I talk about, this is the important one, right? In a controlled market situation, you hide the gold, you go, you shut down the Grand Canyon from any precious metals exploration, you create the Fed to control all markets, you rig the markets with controlled prices, you start wars if anybody gets out of line, you create regulators, use other countries' natural resources. Before we use our own, we do a lot of that. Print as much fiat money as possible, and then blow up the derivative bubble. That's the decision they made in 1913. That's what they've been doing. A free market solution would tell the people that you found all that goddamn gold, allow free markets to revalue gold and silver in 1912, manage change with the help of we the people, because you're working with the people, you're not some regulator or bank back there working against the people. Use the treasure to help the people. Set an example as a benevolent superpower. Can you imagine if we said, we found all this gold in America, we're going to give it to the world because we got too much. And all you rich people, screw you, because we're going to be giving out wealth to the world. Follow the guidelines of the Constitution. Wouldn't that be cool? And what happened to the Constitution? It's long been gone. We need to bring that back. Move forward in wealth and prosperity, and then teach your children to do the same. That's what we should have done. But I had to delete that slide because we didn't do it. And then I went through another one. Delete as well. We are screwed up, but there is a way out. The only way out is to destroy the old system or let it be destroyed. So the next time they come to Congress and say, we need $700 billion or a bailout or you're going to lose everything. Except it's going to be $20 trillion. And I've already started the count. If you're on the RoadtoRoota, you see the count every day. How much the bailout's out? There are 258 billion for the weekend the banks needed. just for the weekend. $258 billion. And they came to us for $700 billion in 2008. They're already, what is that? Third of the way there and moving. Solution, remove all government intervention and regulation from markets and let the chips fall where they may. It's time to stop kicking the can down the road because we have not let free markets determine winners and losers for over 100 years. The markets have become so dangerous, so distorted. There's only one way out, a total creative destruction event. No bailouts, no nationalization, no revaluation, nothing. It's the only way back to free markets and the only way back to freedom. That's my speech. Thank you.
Litecoin, baby, Litecoin. That's the right coin. Absolutely 100%. So yes, I brought the band tonight. They're going to come up in a little bit. I got a couple songs I want to play for you. Again, I've been pumping the Anarcho-Poco conference for a reason. I think it's fun. I think it's transformative. It's crazy. It's weird. Absolutely. It's not safe. It's so far from safe. I don't know why, but we've always had a good time. But I wrote a song about freedom fighters and what the lengths they will go to. I was in Mexico talking to these guys at the Anarcho-Poco conference, and I was bitching and moaning that it took me like 12 hours to get down there because I went through Mexico City. They said it took us 4 days. I'm like, what do you mean it took 4 days to get here? And they said, well, we took a train. I'm like, you can't take a train. They were from Chicago. You can't take a train from Chicago to Acapulco, Mexico. And they said, oh, yeah, you can. I'm like, no, you cannot. They do it hobo style. They hopped trains to get to Anarcho-Poco. So I wrote a song about them. It's called Anarcho-Poco, Here We Come. It's got train sounds. So we'll see if this works. Freedom in our mouth, shedding silly rules from the government tools. From every land we come, it don't matter where you're from, by land or sea or air, fuck the borders, we don't care. We're fighting for our lives, for our freedom in the sun. Everybody singing Acapulco, here we come. Acapulco, here we come, and Acapulco, here we come. Gonna rise against the man, gonna tear down what we can. It's the way our lives should be, it's the way we should be free. In Acapulco, here we come, and Acapulco, here we come. You wanna change the world, hop on the train and run. Everybody singing Acapulco, here we come. Woo, woo. Maybe longer if you're free, cause the rules are thrown away. Day is night and night is day, and the only thing they ask, give everyone a pass. Be the way you'll be when your life is truly free. Going crazy all day, all night until you're done. Everybody singing Acapulco, here we come. Acapulco, here we come, and Acapulco, here we come. Gonna rise against the man, gonna tear down what we can. It's the way our life should be, it's the way it should be free. In Acapulco, here we come, and Acapulco, here we come. You wanna change the world, hop on a train and run. Everybody singing Acapulco, here we come.